provided by Thomas Allgeier and Frennis, based on the most relevant posts on LinkedIn about electrification and battery technology in CW 2829. Frennis is a B2B market research company working with enterprises to optimize their campaigns with account and executive insights far beyond what traditional AI can provide. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the top electrification and battery technology trends that really lit up LinkedIn over calendar weeks 28 and 29. We've pulled together a fantastic stack of insights that truly show where the mobility industry is heading. Everything from the practical stuff like charging right up to the cutting edge of battery innovation.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here is how these discussions, shared by professionals right there in the field, they paint this dynamic picture. It's a market that's not just growing, it feels like it's really maturing now.
Maturing, right.
So we're going to look at concrete steps in infrastructure, some innovative solutions for energy management, and what all this really means for you, whether you're dealing with the day-to-day operations or thinking more about the long-term strategic shifts.
Okay, so let's kick things off with charging infrastructure and deployment. I mean, this is often the first thing people think about with EVs, right? And LinkedIn was just buzzing with updates, how it's scaling, getting smarter.
Exactly. And scaling is definitely the word. We saw some pretty big moves. For instance, EV Edison, this was highlighted by Bill Pierce. They just launched the largest multi-class EV charging hub on the East Coast, Kearney, New Jersey.
Oh, wow. Biggest on the East Coast.
Yeah, we're talking 30 ultra-fast, 180 kilowatt ports, and crucially designed for heavy-duty freight and public use. It's a huge commitment to scale.
That is a massive investment, high-capacity charging. But it's not just about the raw power, is it? Seems like there are different ways people are tackling this network build-out.
Absolutely. You see different approaches. Across Europe, for example, there's a real push for accessibility. Paul-Jan Jacobs pointed out France is really leading the charge there. Over 169,000 public charge points.
169,000.
Yeah, including thousands of these ultra-fast chargers along highways. And we even saw Eon Drive infrastructure in Denmark. Anders Krag shared this. They're installing over 200 charging stations at churches.
At churches? Seriously?
Yeah. Talk about widening rural access, right? It shows the market's moving beyond just cities, really trying to reach into people's daily lives wherever they are.
That's pretty creative, finding space where people actually go. But, okay, building them is one thing, making sure they're actually usable.
Yeah.
That feels like the next big challenge.
Yeah.
What were people saying about the kind of practical pain points?
Oh, definitely a hot topic.
Yeah.
Andrew Hardingham highlighted that frustrating issue of public chargers being IC'd out.
Yeah.
Internal combustion engine cars blocking the spot.
Right. Happens all the time.
And his point was strong installing these chargers without proper parking restrictions. It's basically wasting taxpayer money. It's a fundamental block to actual accessibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not just having the plug, it's getting to the plug when you need it. What about smart solutions then? Are people finding ways around these hurdles?
Yeah, there are positive steps, like the UK government finally approved proper signage for EV charging hubs on main roads. Instavolt, highlighted by Delvin Lane, had been campaigning for this. They called it a sign of progress.
Seems small, but probably makes a big difference.
Huge difference for drivers just trying to find a station quickly. And then for city dwellers, the London EV group, Harry Hazel supports them. They're actively helping local councils implement safe ways to run charging cables across pavements for homes. That's a huge deal if you don't have a driveway.
Oh, yeah, essential for terraced houses and flats.
Exactly. These are the practical things that make the infrastructure actually work day to day.
Okay, so that brings up this interesting debate about charging speed. We hear about megawatt charging, these massive chargers. But is that always what people need? And how do we make deployments more efficient for just, regular use?
That's a great question. And yeah, definitely different perspectives floating around. Aid Thomas, for example, he sort of questioned the need for 1,000 kilowatt charging for trucks.
1,000 kilowatts? Wow.
Yeah, his point was drivers legally have to rest for 45 minutes anyway. So does that ultra-fast speed actually save meaningful time given the current rules? It's a valid query.
Interesting point. What's the counter-argument?
Well, on the flip side, Florian Coulter argued that for most situations, 50 kilowatt charging is, quote, absolutely sufficient.
50? That sounds quite low compared to the ultra-fast ones.
It does, but think about it. Charging while you have dinner or do your weekly shop or even just grab a coffee for an hour, that 50 kilowatts can give you a pretty decent top-up.
Okay, I see.
And his point was the benefits are lower costs, less strain on the grid, So maybe it's more practical for widespread deployment. Plus, Pedro Miguel Ferreira shared some cool examples from Portugal. They're connecting EV chargers directly to existing public light posts.
Oh, smart. Using existing infrastructure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Faster, cheaper rollouts. It's really about finding the right speed and the right deployment model for the right situation, not necessarily one size fits all.
So, okay, pulling this together, what does this all mean for those of you actually operating in this space or relying on this infrastructure? Demand is clearly surging, but so are the growing pains. It's this real push and pull, isn't it?
It really is. Andrew Gray put it very bluntly for UK hotel owners. He said, it's not a question of whether your hotel needs EV charging. It's a question of what it's costing you not to have it.
Wow, that's a shift from amenity to necessity.
Definitely. But then you have voices like Angelo E. making a strong case about the U.S. needing to stop telling ourselves the U.S. is leading the EV transition. He argues charging needs to be treated as critical infrastructure, like roads or water, not some luxury add-on.
A call for a mindset shift.
Yeah, and David C. Adams echoed that, calling for urgent action to fix targets and build out U.S. infrastructure. He noted that even hints of potential future rebates can make consumers hit the pause button on buying EVs now. Creates uncertainty.
Right, that makes sense. So it sounds like a real mixed bag, incredible growth in some places, but still facing these fundamental challenges.
Totally. Look at this data David Costello shared from Wrexham in the UK. A staggering 2,705% increase in electricity delivered to EVs in just 1 year.
2,000%.
Yeah, that's, genuine transformation happening locally. But then Maxim Reznichenko reported that in Germany, even with a 43% jump in BEV registrations, the top pain points are still lack of charging infrastructure and long waiting times.
So adoption is outpacing the infrastructure build-out in some key markets.
It seems that way. It really highlights this uneven pace across different regions. And interestingly, Volker Froese pointed to Switzerland's approach. They call it serenity over subsidies. They've hit over 30% electric cars without huge government handouts.
Wow.
Partly because, apparently, charging is available roughly every 15 kilometers on their motorways. It suggests that maybe consistent, reliable infrastructure is more powerful than just throwing money at the problem.
Fascinating. Okay, so beyond the physical plugs and cables, the LinkedIn conversations also really dug into the digital side of things. Payments, software, getting everything to work together.
Yeah.
The ecosystem.
Yeah, that's where the whole experience comes together or falls apart. Tamara Chilo announced that her company, Carica, raised $4 million trial. And their specific goal, building a transparent, operator-controlled payment platform.
Transparency, right.
Her point was simple. Drivers deserve price transparency. And equally, operators need proper control over their networks and pricing.
That feels crucial for building trust. But it sounds like even fundamental choices about how these systems talk to each other are still being debated.
Exactly right. Victoria Ladchuk ran a poll, and it showed there's still quite a bit of uncertainty among companies about whether to go with OCPI or Hubject for eRoaming.
Okay, remind us OCPI, Hubject. These are like the digital handshakes between different charging networks.
Pretty much. They're the protocols or frameworks that let different networks communicate. So ideally, you can use one app or card to charge anywhere. The fact that the industry is still kind of figuring out which standard to fully back tells you that digital architecture is still very much under construction.
Right. And it sounds like we're not just building new digital tools, but also dealing with legacy issues. I heard something about a ticking cost bomb.
Ah, yeah, that was York Kolb's phrase. He highlighted how outdated software in charging stations is essentially creating stranded assets.
Stranded assets, meaning the hardware is fine, but useless.
Exactly. Perfectly good chargers that might need replacing just because the software controlling them is obsolete or unsupported. He called it a ticking cost bomb and stressed the need for software retrofits and, crucially, open systems to avoid this.
That makes sense. Adaptability is key.
And Christian Kurtenbach offered some advice for corporate EV charging teams. He suggested they can move fast by adopting agile methods, like you see in scale-ups. Engage early, focus on the customer, start small, learn quickly.
Good advice for any fast-moving tech sector, really. Are there solutions emerging to help manage the energy side more intelligently, too? And security.
Definitely. We saw Andrew Elwell's company, Ampower. They're offering energy intelligence solutions, basically integrating battery energy storage systems, BESS, with their Cosmos energy management system.
So using batteries to smooth out grid issues.
Right. Turning grid constraints into potential opportunities for efficiency, maybe even profitability, and definitely resilience. And on the security front, Tom Caldwell's EcoSec Works is focusing on AI-driven risk mitigation, specifically for EV charging.
AI for security, how does that work?
They're using things like agentic AI and large quantitative models to tackle cybersecurity threats, but also operational issues, basically trying to ensure uptime and security as these networks get bigger and more complex, which is, vital.
It really paints a picture of how sophisticated the back end of charging is becoming. Okay, what about the future of communication? How vehicles and chargers actually talk to each other? Any consensus emerging there?
Yeah, there seems to be a strong push towards making it easier and smarter. Hassan Asghar shared survey results showing hardware manufacturers are increasingly supporting OCPC 2.x.
OCPP 2.x that enables.
Key things like plug and charge and V2G, vehicle to grid, those were identified as top priorities. So the vision is moving towards just plugging in your car and having it automatically authenticate and charge, no apps or cards needed, and preparing for cars to send power back to the grid.
That plug and charge. Yeah. That sounds like a huge improvement for usability.
It really does. And Simon Vokes shared how InCharge is partnering with Powie, really emphasizing real-time user feedback. Their whole philosophy is only customers can truly define quality.
Listening to the users makes sense.
And just on a fundamental level, Florian Bartel and Marcos Alfaro Requena both made the point that we need clear, essential dictionaries for electric mobility. Defining all these abbreviations, CPO, EVSE, BMS, V2G, V2H, OCPP, getting everyone speaking the same language is vital for integration.
Good point. All right, moving from software and communication to something truly transformative, bidirectional charging, V2G, V2H. This idea that your EV doesn't just take power, but can actually give it back, that feels like a major shift.
Oh, it's a huge leap. It fundamentally changes the EV's role. We saw Raul Arredondo and Jose Miranda sharing news about a pretty groundbreaking partnership in the UK between Octopus Energy and BYD.
Octopus and BYD, what are they doing?
They launched the UK's first big vehicle-to-grid V2G solution. It's part of this Power Pack bundle. And get this, under certain conditions, it enables free home charging for all miles driven.
Free charging? How?
By letting the utility use the car's battery to help balance grid loads when it's plugged in, the car earns its keep, basically.
That sounds like a win-win. Financial perks for the owner, stability for the grid. But what's stopping this from being everywhere already? Is it just the technology?
Well, it's way more complex than just the tech. Jap Berger used this great visual, calling the barriers 15 shades of gray.
15 shades, meaning?
Meaning it's multifaceted. Barriers range from national rules to international ones, even mental barriers, people getting used to the idea, plus regulatory hurdles, technical standards. It needs, as he put it, diverse solutions and collaborations. It's a whole system puzzle.
Okay, so a systemic challenge, not just one silver bullet. But are we seeing progress on chipping away at those shades of gray?
Absolutely. There's definite movement. Manfred Prisibilla announced that the Ambibox V2G charger actually secured European grid code certification. That's a major regulatory green light, paving the way for wider rollout across different countries.
It's a big step.
Huge. And on the technical side, Marco Antonio Murgaccio Blandon shared about the FH&W test laboratory. They're building these cutting-edge facilities specifically to advance V2G system development and standardization, testing things like ISO 1511820, OCPP 2.1, the technical underpinnings.
So the testing and standards are catching up.
They are, and we're seeing key players team up. Andreas noted that ChargePoint and Eaton are partnering up specifically to advance EV charging infrastructure and co-develop V2X capabilities. This kind of collaboration across the industry is exactly what's needed.
It really sounds like the industry is actively working through these complexities to make V2G mainstream. For the average person, what's the simplest way to think about V2G versus V2H?
Yeah, Virat Anadaria gave a really clear breakdown. V2H, vehicle to home, is basically your EV acting like a big backup battery for your house. Power outage. Your car could keep the lights on. Or store your excess solar power.
Okay, home backup power. Got it.
Then V2G, vehicle to grid, takes it a step further. Your car can send power back to the main electricity grid, especially during peak demand times. This helps stabilize a whole system and potentially earns you money. Tim Ryan summed it up nicely. V2G is a consumer-centric product. It lets EV owners earn a little money back, using their car battery proactively, rather than just being, as he put it, a grub toll bridge VPP.
Right, turning your car from just transport into this dynamic energy asset. Very cool.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift focus now to the heart of the EV, the batteries themselves, and the incredible vehicle innovations these batteries are enabling. This is where a lot of the core R&D happens, right?
Absolutely. This is the engine room, so to speak. Francesca D'Annunzio explains something interesting: why plasma cleaning is apparently crucial for precise, pure, and high-performance battery manufacturing.
Plasma cleaning, how does that help?
It improves things like weld quality inside the battery, adhesion between layers, and it reduces internal resistance, the upshot. Longer-lasting, safer batteries. It's one of those behind-the-scenes manufacturing steps that makes a big difference.
Interesting. And what about the battery chemistry itself? Still lithium-ion, or are we seeing big shifts?
Well, Timothy Gotzik quoted a Forbes article saying that while current lithium-ion is actually more than good enough for most current needs, the ongoing development of solid-state batteries will simply make them more so. So lithium-ion works, but the push for even better tech, like solid-state, is definitely still on.
Right, constant evolution. And these advancements, they're showing up in some pretty, well, jaw-dropping vehicles, pushing the limits of EV performance. What stood out?
Oh yeah, some really headline-grabbing stuff. Wolf Schlechter summarized the upcoming Mercedes-AMG GTXX planned for 2026. He described it as groundbreaking electric car technology.
What's the headline spec?
The goal is to charge 400 kilometers of range in just 5 minutes.
5 minutes for 400 kilometers, seriously.
That's the aim. Using an 800-volt system and an average charging power of 850 kilowatters, he noted that's almost 3 times faster than current Tesla superchargers.
That's game-changing speed if they pull it off.
Absolutely. And then on the commercial side, Tobias Wagner shared a world record. The largest single charging process recorded, 637 kilowatters, delivered to a Mercedes e-Actros 600 truck. It just shows the progress in high-capacity charging for heavy-duty applications.
Right, proving it can work for the big rigs. What else is happening with vehicle architecture driven by these batteries?
Well, Vinicio Carrara observed that megawatt charging is really starting to redefine heavy-duty mobility, allowing trucks, buses, even heavy mining equipment to recharge with up to 1 megawatt of power. That's huge.
A megawatt.
Yeah. And Syed Hasib Hassan's interview with a Volvo Cars senior engineer about the new ES90 highlighted that shift to 800-volt architecture again, but also the evolution of battery design towards structural integration.
Meaning the battery becomes part of the car's frame?
Exactly, making the car lighter, potentially stronger, and optimizing space. And looking even further ahead, beyond cars, Evan Byrne made an interesting point about electric aircraft.
Electric planes.
Yeah. He argued they should prioritize wing-borne lift for efficiency. Basically, designs that fly like conventional planes rather than vertical lift like drones or helicopters. Why? Because wing-borne flight uses 50–80% less thrust, which is a massive energy saving, crucial given today's battery energy density limitations for flight.
Makes sense. Efficiency is everything when your fuel source is heavy. Okay, so moving beyond just the vehicles and chargers, the industry discussions also really zoomed out to the entire life cycle: battery, supply chains, recycling, market outlook, the whole strategic landscape.
Yeah, this holistic view is becoming absolutely central. Derek Curtin made a really compelling point about repurposing used EV batteries, putting them into stationary energy storage systems. He called it like free money.
Free money? How so?
Because the cost of the battery was essentially paid off or amortized during its life in the car, so using its remaining capacity for storage is incredibly cost-effective. Plus, it's a huge win for sustainability.
Right, the circular economy in action. Who's actually doing this at scale?
We saw Kurt Kelty share news that General Motors is partnering with Redwood Materials. They're working together to accelerate the deployment of U.S.-made energy storage using both new GM batteries and these Second Life EV packs.
GM and Redwood, okay. Any breakthroughs in the recycling tech itself?
Yes. Altilium announced what they called a game-changing recycling breakthrough. Rafael Dominici and Dr. Christian Marston shared this. Apparently, their process can recover 97% of the lithium and 99% of the graphite from old EV batteries.
Wow, nearly everything.
Yeah, allowing it to be reused in new batteries. They're aiming to create the UK's first fully circular EV battery recycling model. And Tunskip put out a comprehensive report stressing that building a resilient end-to-end supply chain is key to keeping EVs affordable, sustainable, and safe from disruptions. He pointed to trends like onshoring manufacturing, vertical integration by companies, and just the sheer growth of gigafactories globally.
That sounds like a massive global effort to build this new supply chain. But what about the bigger picture? Policy shifts, market realities, geopolitics, that must be impacting things too.
Hugely. The landscape is definitely complex and competitive. Bruno Lagarde offered some sharp insights on China's dominance in battery tech, especially LFP lithium iron phosphate breakthroughs from giants like BYD and CATL.
LFP is getting big, yeah.
Right. And China restricting the export of some of these advanced technologies, it poses a real challenge to, say, U.S. patent rights and market access. She summed it up starkly. U.S. has the market and China has the tech. That's a significant dynamic shaping the global industry.
That is a critical point for strategy, definitely. What about policy signals elsewhere, like the U.S. tax credits or the U.K. market?
Well, Stephanie Luke discussed the sunset, or phasing out of some EV tax credits in the USA under the BBB Act. She viewed it as more of a short-term setback, though, remaining, quote, confidently bullish on the sector long-term.
So bumps in the road, but underlying confidence.
Seems to be the feeling. Meanwhile, in the UK, Nick Cook outlined the auto industry's really ambitious 10-point plan. They're aiming for $50 billion in growth by 2035. But he also acknowledged challenges like high energy costs and the industry struggling to meet EV demand, even with incentives in place.
So ambition tempered by some real-world hurdles.
Exactly.
Yep.
And Miloslav Bartosek's latest charging market outlook focused on Europe. It highlighted accelerating BEV adoption and infrastructure rollout, but also noted it's a contested market with challenging profitability for charging providers right now.
Makes sense. Lots of players jumping in.
Yeah. But globally, Jeroen van Tilburg observed that EV sales are just surging. Europe's leading the growth. He attributes it to consistent investment and direction, and the impact. EVs are set to displace an additional 1 million barrels of oil demand per day by the end of 2026.
An extra 1 million barrels a day. That's significant.
It really shows the scale of the transformation underway, even with all the complexities and regional differences we've talked about.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, new deep dives drop every 2 weeks. Also check out our other editions on future mobility and market evolution, next-gen vehicle intelligence, and commercial fleet insights.
Yeah, this deep dive, it really underscores that the future of mobility isn't just one thing. It's this dynamic interplay, isn't it? Technology, infrastructure, policy, all weaving together. And it's not just about building shiny new solutions, but making sure they actually integrate seamlessly and sustainably into how we live and how our economies work, which leaves us with an interesting question for you to think about. As this whole mobility ecosystem matures, with EVs becoming energy assets, with grids getting smarter, how will the very definition of energy independence evolve, both for us as individuals and maybe for nations as a whole? Something to chew on.
That's a great question. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into electrification and battery technology. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive.